chapter 16. So, when I was 10 years old, I wanted to grow my locks. And my mother is Rastafarian. She has locks. And I just didn't want to have locks because my mother had locks. I wanted to grow my locks because I felt a connection to that. And this is where it goes back to the house of Wadada. The house of Wadada is what saved my mother and helped my mother. And I was raised in the womb by Rastafari. And I felt that within the womb of my growth, and my heart was the first organ that was grown within my young fetal stages. I felt that either the drumming that connected me to that roots that had me set for that spiritual guidance. I want to make this clear. I am not a part of any denomination. I am not into politics / politics. I don't vote. I don't go to church. No denominations, no organizations. I'm not a part of that. I am just a traveler. I grow my locks because it is a part of who I am, a part of my connection and my naturality. I love natural. No nails, no paint, no makeup, just some lip gloss and mascara on my eye. But that's just about it. I've never been the one to want to be in the fast life or attracted to the fantasy. As I said, as a child, I was always in the bushes. I was always connected to nature, and nature grew me. And nature is who I understand, and nature is who I feel understands me, understands and overstands me. I respect Rastafari. I respect the tradition. I respect the way of life. And I was connected in feeling that partaking in animal eating is some truth, because as a child, I remember when I was by Mama Teda, I had to eat what she gave to me. And so one day I recall when she went to the commons. The common is where they raise the cow, they raise their goats. It's this big old open field in the country, and the cows graze on the grass and the goats are tied out in the bushes and stuff like that, and they get to graze up in those Westmoreland. And most times if you go into those areas, you will get ticks and stuff like that, because that's where the animals were kept. And some butchers would have their butcher shop built there on that common, especially in that area. The butcher had a shop built a little away from the common, where he would have his pig farm. He had the goats, he had his cow, and he had his chicken. And she took me with her this one particular day, and I've witnessed, I was 10 years old. This is shortly before I was sent back to my mother at 10, because I went back to my mother at 10. But this is at 10 years old, because I never forget it. I used to enjoy eating chicken, fried chicken. I love that, brown stew chicken, rice and peas, coleslaw on Sundays. Loved it. I enjoyed beef stew, which would be stewed peas with beef cut up inside of it with white rice. Loved it. Curry goat and white rice, loved it. Beef soup, loved it. And those were my favorite things to eat when she would get the lady to cook our meals, because she had a cook, and that lady was the one who would help her. She would cook and help her tend to the house and stuff like that. And she was a good cook, and I enjoyed her meals when she made them. But when I went on that farm that day and I witnessed the butchering of the cow, I witnessed the butchering of the goats and the killing of the chickens, it was traumatic for me. I remember running and crying, and I was like begging, please, please, please don't kill the cow, please don't kill the goat. And I was just crying, and I was like, the baby goat, I was looking at the baby goat, looking like, I was like, they're crying for their mother, and I was just so in tears and pain. I couldn't take it. The way how he stabbed the cow in the head, turned the goat upside down and slit his throat. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I was like, no. I run to the bushes again. I climb up in some mountain top, sit down crying, and I said, I promise, I'm not going to eat any more animals. I promise. I was crying. I was thinking, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get my food? But I figured out, I said, okay, I could do this. I will just cook cabbage, whatever, and I'll just eat the vegetable. I can do this. If they don't want to cook my food, I'll cook my own food. I was sitting there figuring it all out like I normally do in the bushes. Figuring it all out. How am I going to tell her that I don't want to eat meat anymore? I don't want to eat any of this anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. At 10 years old. So when we went home that day and we were walking, I said, Mama, and she's like, yes. And she said, I said to her, I said, can I please don't eat any more meat? She's like, what you talking about? I said, I don't want to eat any more meat. I don't want any more chicken. I don't want any more curry goat. I don't want any more beef soup. I don't want to eat any of that anymore. And she's like, well, I don't know how you're gonna manage. I don't know how you're gonna manage, because it's whatever I have is what I'm going to give you. I'm not gonna cook two pots. And so I figured that part. So I said, oh, that's okay. I said, I will cook my own food. She said, but oh, how you gonna get the food? You have money to buy it? That part I didn't think about. Because I was like, they was gonna give me food anyways, but the only thing is that I would just cook my vegetable. So when she hit me with that part, I was like, so you not gonna give me no food at all to eat? Like, and she's like, no, I'm gonna give you food, but it's what I have is what you're gonna eat. So I was like, okay, I'll just eat the rice then by itself. And she just, one thing with Mama Tay, she will not argue with you. She will not. She say something and that's it. She's not gonna go back and forth. So she was done, and I was just in my mind wondering, I guess she's just gonna make me eat rice by itself then, because she hasn't said nothing more. But that evening, the table was spread. There was curry goat, fried chicken, stewed peas, and all the things. Because remember, she went to butcher shop and she get all our fresh meat, and you know, they come over and they were eating, and I was just like looking at the table and trying to figure out what am I going to eat. And I was like, okay, I'll just eat the rice and peas and coleslaw. They made coleslaw, so that's what I share. And she put some chicken on my plate, and I was like, no, I don't want the chicken. Remember, I was telling you better eat the food. You better eat. And that's when she's like, you better eat the food. So I said, I sit there and I was looking at, she's like, I eat around the chicken, I eat the rice and the vegetable, and she watching me. And so I pretend like, okay, I'm gonna bite the chicken, but then I was just like, When she not look, I spit it in my hand and I hold it in my hand underneath the table. But now I'm like, how am I going to throw this away? Because now I'm gonna have to get up and she's gonna ask me, why am I getting up? So now I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna have the meat in my hand and eat without her asking me what's in my hand. So what I did, I just put it in my lap like this and then come back up and eat. So I keep putting the chicken in my lap and still eating, and it looked like, so then only the bone left. So then now I'm like, okay, I have all this meat in my lap. How am I gonna dispose of it? So I was just like thinking. So I was like thinking, how I'm gonna dispose of this meat. So I was like, normally I would put the meat on the bone, so I was just the bone on the plate, and then I would take my plate outside. But I'm like, I have the meat in my lap, how I'm gonna do this? So someone came and distracted her, and as soon as she was distracted, oh, I jump up and make sure I have this hand with the meat, put the plate on top of my hand with the meat, and say, excuse me, from the table, and run out and just throw the meat quick to the dog, because we had dogs. And they just eat everything fast, like in a clock, in not even a second, just clock, just done, gone. That was my blessing right there. So like, I get away with the first day, how am I gonna manage with the other days? So the helper, I went to the helper and I said to her, can you please cook some vegetables for me, please? And she's like, I have to tell Mama Tita that, and if she said yes, then me cook vegetable on the side. I said, okay. So she went and she said, Mom, is it okay if me cook some callaloo on the side? And she said, yes, man, you can make some callaloo. That sounds good. So I was like so happy when she said that, and she shared my food, and I said, I don't want any meat, I just want the callaloo and the rice only. And I was getting away with it like that, cabbage and stuff. And then one day I was like, go in the kitchen and I stand up on a box and I cook my own cabbage and stuff with carrot and stuff. And I was getting away with that. So one part of when I was told that I had to go back to my mother, I was kind of happy about that, because my mother is a vegetarian. Her husband was also a Rastafarian, and so the household was vegetarian, but I would say a pescatarian, because my mother had fish. She ate fish. So I was okay with eating fish because there was no blood. When I see the fish, there was like no blood coming draining, and it didn't have the organs as the animals, and I didn't witness any breasts on the fish and all this stuff, and a heartbeat and all these things. It just has gills. So in my mind, I reasoned that out, and I was like, it's okay to eat fish. So I partake in having fish and my vegetables. So when I went home back to my mother, I was happy about that, because I wouldn't have to worry about eating meat.